So he's a guy that he would like to in an ideal world, Mamdani would like to be a communist, is what he would like to be. He would like to get rid of all the billionaires, and he would like there to be no existence of any billionaires. I even think he said that in the past before. Yeah, that he thinks we don't need billionaires, right? And many others have said that as well. The issue with affordability is something that whoever is able to figure that part out is going to win elections. Whoever. The other day I had Dominic Tarczynski on. And you know what's the one thing they do in Poland now that they came up with 3 years ago? I think it's a brilliant idea, Vinny. It's in Poland now, if you're 26 or younger, you pay no federal income tax. If you're 26 or younger. So if you make $100,000 a year, guess how much you keep? $100,000. If you make $500,000 a year, you keep $500,000. So I said, what if we did that for 30 or under? What if you're under 30, whatever you make, you keep? What if you did that? What would happen to the youth? And what if you said, if you have 4 kids or more, from the age your kids are 0 to 18 years old, you pay no federal income taxes. Think about that for a second. But it's 4 kids, husband and wife, the 2 of you guys. Not like the Middle Eastern way. I'm talking like the traditional way, 4 kids, right? I don't want you to accelerate it and go and say, let's practice polygamy so I can get 4 kids in 1 year because I'm making $100 million this year. Yeah. I want to accelerate the process.
Create a charity.
Yeah, but I do think there's going to be someone in the next 12, 24, 36 months that's going to come out with some creative ideas to make sure the youth don't pay any taxes until they're 30 years old.
Because you're going to incentivize that kid to hustle and bust their butt and make money, and then you're going to have other people to have a bunch of kids.
It is a real issue. Can we get to the next car thing? Why Vinny doesn't want to buy a car?
The thing I just want to give you credit. You always talk about more is caught than taught. That's what I was thinking about. Did you hear what Bill Maher said? So if you want to go look at this story, Bill Maher basically called out Bernie Sanders about taxes. I think it's an important addendum to basically the story.
I saw that.
He basically said last week was tax day.
You were about to go to it.
Yeah, I paid the government if you add state tax, local tax, sales, property, and Obamacare, probably almost 60% of what I earn in California. He said, while I'm sure the super rich with our army of accountants and corporate loopholes get away with murder, us regular rich people pay a ton of taxes. And here's the numbers. The top 10% of America pays 72% of all taxes. Top 10%, the bottom half, so the 50% of this country that's basically earning less than $40,000, do you know how much they pay in taxes? 3%. So this whole taxing the rich, federally, where can they go? They'll leave the country. But if you do it in a state, how many people are going to leave California? You left California 13%. How many people leave New York? So more is taught than taught. When it affects you.
This is just the beginning. But let's go to the next story. Next story I want to get to is Trump abruptly cancels Kushner-Witkoff's Pakistan trip. And so they won't be going. And at the same time, the Iran guy, Abbas Araghchi, I believe that's his name, he went to Pakistan, then went to Oman, and is in Russia. And I think he is meeting with Putin as we speak, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, that is going on right now as we speak. They just landed in Russia. They're about to meet with Putin. Allegedly, is the story that we keep reading about, that this may be taking place right now. Trump also said he's taking the nukes off the table with Iran. He doesn't have any interest in doing anything with nukes. And if you go in the market, look at what the market's doing today. Gold is back up to 96. I don't know where it's at now. Not gold. Oil is back up to 96.30. Market's down slightly. Nothing major. It's down slightly. But oil is up. So in a part of this oil story, Tom, I'm going to come to you, is I think it's in the addendum with what the oil is doing. Trump claims Iran's oil infrastructure may explode in 3 days due to U.S. blockade. So, Rob, if you have that clip, go for it. Right there. Can't hear anything, guys.
But what you're referring to is that when you have lines of vast amounts of oil pouring through your system, if for any reason that line is closed because you can't continue to put it into containers or ships, which has happened to them, they have no ships because of the blockade. What happens is that line explodes from within, both mechanically and in the earth. Something happens where it just explodes. And they say they only have about 3 days left before that happens. And when it explodes, you can never rebuild it the way it was. In other words, it will always be if you rebuild it, it's hard to rebuild it all, but it would only be about 50% of what it is right now. So it's a very powerful thing that takes place, sort of having to do with nature. But when that gets clogged at the end, in other words, when you have to turn it off because you have no place to store this oil, either put it on ships or storage tanks, which they are just about finished with, a very bad thing is going to happen. So I think they're under pressure. But
Tom.
So Iran's under tremendous just mechanical pressure. They need, I'm not going to comment on the explode because I have not found the explosion comment, but I have found all of the comments regarding storage. Right now, you pump the oil out of the ground and you store it in these tanks. And then guess what? Empty tankers come up to Carg Island, they hook up, they take your crude oil and they go to wherever they go and they refine it into aviation fuel, gasoline, jet fuel, all the kerosene, everything else that they need to make out of a barrel of oil. But right now, once you've got oil in motion, what I've been reading about, once the oil is in motion, that a sudden halt creates a problem where they have to restart the well and repump the well. Because remember, like in the U.S., we do fracking and stuff. And so there is mechanical things, Pat, that if they stop right now, number one, they're full. It means they can't offload it to anybody, which also means that they're not selling as much of it per day. And we've already talked about $444 million a day or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. So he's right, is they're coming up against an infrastructure deadline where they have no place to put the oil, and if they shut down the pumps, they're hard to restart, and there's certain damage that can be caused. And so they're really up against it. They need all of these empty tankers to immediately get to Carg Island so that they can be offloading this stuff that they're pumping into these storage facilities.
Yeah, when you're reading this, it says experts have warned that Iran could be forced to shut down its oil fields as early as April 29 because the U.S. naval blockade, risking long-term damage to its crude production. So that's because Tehran is effectively running out of storage space, like we talked about earlier. Both the Critical Threats Project of the American Enterprise Institute and Energy Aspect UK-based fuel analyst firm estimates that Iran's storage space will be up in the coming week, like now. And so if that's going on, Tom, the question becomes the following. Is this one of the reasons why the president is just kind of cool, calm, and collected right now? Does he know that Iran is super desperate and they can't, they have no leverage? Because, Trump knows the cards. And it doesn't seem like he's pushing that hard. He's just kind of like, yeah, okay, take your time. You don't want to talk to us? No problem. We also won't come down. What could Russia do right now to help them to extend a life?
What could Russia do
to help Iran to have
Russia needs to get in and say, buddy, we need to be working together for the next century, and you're coming up against a very, very tough time. We got to figure this thing out. You got to figure this thing out. And I think that's why Trump is saying, we have all the cards. We've got 5 days. They've got 5 days. Our 5 days is we can wait. Their 5 days is a deadline. So if you think of it that way, our 5 days is patience. Their 5 days is a mechanical oil pumping deadline. What could Russia do? Russia could help. Russia could say, look, I know I haven't been really as cooperative with Trump as I could have been, and I got my own Ukraine war going on, but you guys, you need to figure this out, and you need to figure it out in a hurry. I think, and now, is Putin going to call Trump and say, Donald, Mr. President, what do you want me to do? That's not going to happen. But I think, Russia could be an intermediary, not for the U.S., but simply because they need Iran to be pumping. And Russia's other friend, China, is probably whispering around saying, hey, somebody, we got to figure this out. We got to figure this out. We need all those empty tankers to be at Carg Island to be pumping off right now. So I think it's Russia and China behind the scenes, Pat. They have to be. If you're dependent on Iran for oil, the way China is, you got to be whispering right now. And supposedly Putin was going to Oman, right?
Yeah, exactly. Adam, your thoughts?
Well, if there's one thing we know about Trump is that he's ready to make a deal. That guy wants to make a deal, whether it's a real estate deal, whether it's a peace deal, whether it's a weapons deal, whether it's a financial deal, he's ready to make a deal. He also said he's in no rush. Think about that. Everyone's trying to give him you got to hurry up. You got to end this. He basically said, listen, we were in war in Afghanistan 20 years. We're in Iraq for almost a decade, whatever it was. Vietnam was X amount of years. World War III goes, we've been doing this 6 weeks, guys. Pump the brakes a little bit. By the way, there was also another quote. He goes, nobody's telling me what to do. Nobody. I'm making the decisions. Whether you agree with him or not, that's on you. But it's on Trump. But you know what this reminds me of, this whole Pakistan thing? Remember when we had the live event for the Reagan movie with Dennis Quaid, right? Great movie, great actor. Giving a shout out to Reagan here. They had a challenge when they were negotiating the nuclear peace deal with the U.S. and the USSR of getting USSR to the table. And here's what we learned about the negotiation. It goes, just get them in the room. If they're not in the room, what are we negotiating? So right now we're trying to get to the leaders of Iran, whoever they are, whoever it is at this point. You said it's this guy, I don't know, whatever his name is now. It's not the supreme leader. He's dead. The supreme leader's son.
I heard he's injured. I heard he's
getting a facelift apparently. Yeah, missing a leg. Okay, so they didn't even know who negotiating.
Negotiator Abbas Agharati.
Yeah, this guy.
If I pronounce it.
So what happened was, this is what I think will make Trump so unique. You tell me if you guys agree. What Reagan did is when he got them in the room, he killed them with kindness. He did unreasonable hospitality, and they felt. I mean, these guys were Cold War enemies. I would argue that Iran and U.S. are actually worse enemies because we're actually fighting. U.S. and USSR never fought. But they got him to the table, he killed him with kindness, and they worked out a deal. The whole thing with Iran, I think Jake Sullivan basically said when they were doing the nuclear deal, he goes, you know, they say trust but verify? He goes, with Iran, don't trust and still verify. Bottom line is we got to get them in the room. We have to figure out what they want. And Trump, if there's one person you trust in a room negotiating a deal, it's Trump or his liaison. And that's where I think this is going to go.
Vinny.
Yeah, I mean, dude, all the craziness, all the noise from the past 2-3 weeks, now it's like everything's just calm. Everything's like chill now because now it's like the chess moves that are being made right now are like, now it's like real. Because think about it. These guys are traveling to, where are they right now? They're in Russia.
Who? The leaders
Abbas
of Iran?
and all these guys? Where'd they just land?
I'm not sure.
Rob, where was that?
Yeah.
He's in Russia now.
They're in Russia right now
yes.
talking. And by the way, because mind you, Russia's been, have you heard any, I haven't heard Putin at all, Pat. I haven't heard anything from Xi Jinping. I haven't heard anything. We obviously know that they're doing stuff behind the scenes because they're so, relying on Iran's oil. But I'm very, very interested to see what this week is going to be a very, very telling week, Pat. I think this is going to be a week because what's that conversation like right now? What's the conversation like in Russia with Iran? You know what I mean? What are they talking about right now? So I'm very curious to see what the end of this week is going to look like with that.
What do you think it would be?
I mean,
What do you think Putin is saying to him?
Tom, think about that a lot. But think about that. We're at war with them, us, Israel, Iran. And the quiet people in the war, China and Russia, haven't heard a peep. Now they're openly going to meet with them. And I think that conversation is going to be like, listen, whatever the hell's going on, whatever you guys need to do, you need to make this happen fast because we need the oil. They need the oil. This is all coming down to oil. Am I right, Tom?
Oil and weapons and money.
That's what I'm saying.
Follow the money here. Yeah.
We'll see. Let me get to the next story. Cars, okay, effective 2027. Rob, what page is the car? I think that's on 26, 27, yeah. So this is a little weird. I want to actually get the audience's thoughts on this. So every new car could become a surveillance machine by 2027, and it may decide if you can drive. I mean, this is exactly what these movies, the surveillance movies talk about, like what you don't want it to be, is what it's showing. So let's read this through. This isn't some distant concept or experimental feature that might come up in a few years. By 2027, every car sold in the U.S. could be required to actively monitor the person behind the wheel. That means watching your eyes, tracking your behavior, and constantly evaluating whether you're alert enough to drive or not. For a lot of drivers, that starts to feel a lot less safe and more surveillance. So the law that's quietly changing cars, tucked into a broader federal safety initiative, is a requirement for impaired driving detection technology in all new vehicles. The goal sounds simple enough: reduce crashes caused by drunk or fatigued drivers. It's a problem that has been around for decades, okay? And to do that, automakers will need to install a system that monitors drivers in real time. Vinny, your thoughts on this?
Well, when's the last time we heard something like this? Do you guys remember after September 11th, they gave us the Patriot Act, and they sold it as protection, Pat. Like, stop terrorism, keep everybody safe. Next thing you know, they collected all of our data on everybody. Every single American, they were like, well, guys, the war on terror, that was Bush Jr., his favorite thing. But now the same idea, different excuse. Back then it was terrorists, now it's unsafe drivers, but the move is the same. More surveillance, more control. That's why people don't trust this. And I'm not a fan of it. It sounds so good on paper. It's nobody. I mean, you're a moron. You want drunk drivers on the road, but the part that people are waking up to, this isn't just going to sit there quietly. It's collecting your data, a lot of it, and then once that data exists, it doesn't just disappear. It gets stored, it gets analyzed, it gets potentially shared. Remember, Tom, they're trying to do that predictive, like crime, pre-crime. If you're going to do this, are you going to kill somebody? And then they'll stop you. It's almost like a Minority Report. But insurance companies already want access to this kind of data, obviously. Regulators want more control. And now you have AI making judgment calls in real time. And I'm just not a fan of it, Pat. Like, who's to say my eyes are kind of yawning, or I'm not even yawning, Pat. I have something in my eye, or I'm squinting. What, they're going to monitor me and shut my freaking car off? I'm not a fan of it at all.
Well, listen, a lot of Republicans voted for this. Anna Paulina Luna did not. She even tweeted about this, saying, I'm not part of this.
I don't like it.
But some 55 Republicans voted for this. And some of them said the reason for it is the mothers against drunk drivers. So this is a way for us to protect the kids. Tom, what do you like with this?
So, not well. I do not want to take the autonomy from the human that owns that vehicle. There is already things like Mercedes. Mercedes does a driver attention, and it gives you a beep, and it tells you have to grab the steering wheel, and it'll say, like, are you dozing off? Take a break. So there's things in Mercedes that Mercedes has advertised broadly, even on the little basic Mercedes, Pat, where they detect if you're like maybe getting fatigued and the car starts reacting, but a car doesn't drive for you. I want to know how they're going to underwrite this. We know insurance. So if the car has the ability to take over for me if it thinks I'm incapacity, and the car makes a mistake and